Certainly do appreciate the opportunity to be able to come be with the church this morning. If you'd like to turn and read with us, we want to turn over to Exodus chapter 14. Exodus chapter 14, we're going to start down in verse 10. And I know I probably tried to bring this out here sometime before, but this is the direction that the Lord's sent us in this morning. Has any of us ever made the statement to God, I can't do that? You know, how many of us has ever said, well, God, that's not what I want to do. Well, God, that's not the direction I want to go in. God, that's not, God, I don't have the ability to do any of that. The thing about it is, Brother Herman, God's not looking for our abilities. God's looking for our willingness to get up and go to work. And the thing about it is, what I want to try to get on our heart this morning is simply this. We all have an excuse. So well, what do you mean? We all have an excuse why not to get up and do the work of God. And the thing is, there is no excuses. We think, well, Lord, I just can't. I don't feel good this morning. I'm just tired. And the thing about it is, think about all the times that Jesus got up in the morning time and the things that he knew that he was going to have to face throughout the day, but he still got up and he done the work of God. Amen. Even the other men and throughout the Bible that we could go and read, the things that they knew that they were going to have to face, they got up and they went about God's work. But there are some throughout the Scripture, and we're going to look at some of them this morning that, they gave an excuse. Well, God, I just can't. I don't want to. They several different ones that gave an excuse to the Lord. But the thing about it is, whenever we stand before God during the great day of judgment, look, no excuse that we give God is going to do any good for us. What was the first excuse given to God, to the Lord? Whenever sin first became into this world, what was the first excuse? Well, the snake made me do it. All right, what was the next? Well, she made me do it. And it just goes on from there. And you can look this up, and the excuses throughout the Bible. And I seen this statement that said the lamest excuse of all. This man made the statement that I've seen is whenever Moses was up on the Mount Sinai, and Israel came to Aaron, and they were like, well, we don't know what's happened to Moses, and we don't know if he's even going to come back or anything. He said, look, we need a God. And Aaron told them, he said, look, bring me all your gold, all your rings, and things of that nature. And he melted it down and fashioned a calf for them to serve, a God. And whenever the Lord seen what was going on, and whenever Moses came down and he asked, what in the world has happened? He said, well, it just formed. He said, I just threw the gold in the fire and there it was. Excuses. But the thing about it, whenever he stands before God, that's not going to fly. So whenever we look here in the book of Exodus chapter 10 or chapter 14 verse 10, we find that the time that Israel is being chased by Pharaoh's men, and they come up to the Red Sea, and they're like, well, here is this great obstacle. And think about this, we do this too. Whenever we're faced with a great obstacle in life, we seem to think that, God, I can't make it through that. God, there's no way that I can go through this. But the thing about it is, if you have ever made that statement, God, I can't, you're absolutely right, because in ourselves, we can't do anything. The only way that we can do anything in this life is with the help of God. Even this morning as we got up, who gave us the ability to wake up this morning? God did. Whenever you go to bed at night, that our body, it slows down to the point that it is at the brink of death, and the only thing that keeps us alive is the hand of God. If it wasn't for God, we would not even wake up this morning. We would not be here today. And whenever, Israel, they're looking at this great obstacle in their life, this great body of water, and here's these men is chasing them to kill them, and they're like, they are afraid. He said in verse 10, he said, and when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid, and the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. They were beyond afraid, to say the least. Here is this great obstacle in their life, and there's no way that we can cross over. The water's too deep, it's too wide. No doubt there was a lot of them that wasn't able to swim and things of that nature, but it gets on down to in verse 13, and Moses said unto the people, he said, fear ye not, and stand still. All right, why did Moses tell them to fear not? Because simply this, because the Lord was with them. The thing about it is, each and every one of us, we don't, in all reality, we don't have anything to fear. We all go through life, we have things that we fear, we have, phobias, we have things that bother us, but in all reality, we have nothing to fear if we have the Lord with us. We may just say, Lord, put it on our heart. You need to go talk to that person. Brother Herman, I don't want to talk to that person. All right? We made the statement, that person is not worth speaking to. That person has done me this way. I don't want to, but the thing about it is, if that person is in a lost condition, that very time that the Lord burdens your heart to go speak to that person may be the last time that person ever hears anything about the Lord. I've actually heard that statement made by a man. He made the statement, the Lord put it on his heart to go talk to a man, and he said, I kept putting it off, and I kept putting it off, and next thing I know, he said, I get a phone call, and I said, hey, did you hear about old so-and-so? Said he passed away. He said, I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Knowing that, not in anything that I could have done, but he said, knowing that I could have shared the gospel with that man and he could have trusted Christ and been saved. But now, he is not. These people were afraid. They were looking at this body of water and like, we're all fixing to die. All right, he gets on now, verse 13. He said, and Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more. Listen to verse 14. And the Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. All right, whenever we go out into the world, we know that whenever we face the world, that we're going to face all sorts of things. We're going to face we're going to face the biggest of all, and that is Satan. All right, whenever we go out into the world and we face Satan, we stand up against him to fight against him. How are we going to overcome Satan? We can't overcome Satan without the help of God. The only one that can overcome Satan is God himself. All right, whatever the case may be that we face in life, how are we going to overcome those things? All right, this verse is not one that, you see people quote very much anymore. It used to be one that people quoted all the time. They had it on T-shirts, bumper stickers, bracelets, and all sorts of things. But what does Philippians 4:13 say? He said, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. All right, whenever Paul went to Christ those 3 times to have that thorn removed out of his flesh, what did the Lord tell him? He said, I'm not going to remove that thorn. One, that thorn is there for a purpose. That thorn was there to keep Paul humble. And 2, that thorn was there to teach Paul a lesson. Well, what lesson is that? To teach him that, Paul, you need me. Look, God don't need me. God don't need any of you. He can do the work. He could just speak it and all the work be done. But the thing about it is, we all need God. But he goes on down and he said in verse 19, he said, and the angel of God which went before the camp of Israel removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp and the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. So it was the way the Lord went to them. He led them during the day by a pillar of a cloud, by night a pillar of fire. But the thing about it, he said right there, he said, the way it all worked out, Pharaoh's men was not able to get close enough to Israel. But if it hadn't have been for the Lord being there with them, if they would have, the thing about it is, just like Paul, whenever he was on that ship and they were facing shipwreck, and the Lord told Paul, he said, you tell them, he said, if y'all jump ship before it's time, he said, you're all going to die. But the thing about it was, the reason that they didn't die is because everything was done in the Lord's timing. And that's the thing, we think that, well, God, I just can't. But the thing about it is, we can with God's help. All right, he gets on down, verse 24. He said, and it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of the fire and of the cloud, and troubled the hosts of the Egyptians. All right, listen to verse 25. So they're going out after Israel. One, this is a remarkable thing that has happened to start with. Here you got a body of water, and if you have ever been around any type of body of water that has sit there for a very long time, you remove that water, what are you going to have in the bottom? You're going to have mud. We've worked and built boat houses before, and they would drain the lake down, and in order for you to have, the opportunity to do all this, and even though they drained the lake down and there was not a whole lot of water there, if you walked out there just on your own 2 feet, you would sink up about waist deep in mud. So what we would have to do is cut plywood and lay down in the mud to be able to walk on. But still at that, it would sink up about at least 1 foot to 2 foot in the mud. All right, these men, they walked across on what kind of ground? All right, who caused that to dry up? All right, first off, who caused the water to part? God did. All right, what power could have, did Israel, the children of Israel, did they have any type of power that could have caused these things to happen? No. All right, he said in verse 25, he said, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. The Lord's fighting for them. We need to get out of here now. We're not going to live if we continue fighting after them. But the thing about it is, as far as the excuses side of it, is that they could have looked at that body of water and said, God, I can't. And they were absolutely right. But with the help of God, according to what they were told, said, look, y'all ain't got anything to worry about because God is fighting for you. And the thing about it is, whenever God tells us to do something in life, whenever He's wanting us to go talk to somebody or do something of His work, if we allow Him, He's right there with us. People's like, well, I don't know what to say. Look, I can be the first to admit, I don't know what to say. I could have all sorts of notes. I could have scripture. And the thing about it is, half the time, God won't even let me use none of that. And I don't know what to say. there's been times, or there has been a time, that I had to get up in front of the church and say, I don't have anything to tell you, because the Lord was not in it. Turn over in Deuteronomy chapter 31. Deuteronomy chapter 31, we find another account of them facing a great feat, facing a great obstacle in their life, crossing Jordan. And what the Lord tells them, or what Moses tells them, that the Lord has spoken to him, he said, you don't have anything to worry about. Deuteronomy chapter 31, he said in verse 3, the Lord thy God will go over before thee, and he will destroy these nations from before thee, and thou shalt possess them. And Joshua, he shall go over before thee, as the Lord hath said. So Moses is telling them, he said, look, y'all don't have anything to worry about. All right, if they would have went over on their own merit, and if they would have, in their own mind, we're strong enough, we have the ability, we have the capability, we're going to go and fight these people on our own. Do you reckon they would have ever survived? No. But with the help of the Lord, Moses told them, he said, the Lord's going to be with you. He's going to be fighting for you. He said in verse 6, he said, Moses is encouraging them. He said, be strong and of a good courage. He said, fear not, nor be afraid of them. For the Lord thy God, he it is that doeth go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. All right, on that one verse right there, has the Lord ever forsaken any of us? All right, has he ever failed us? Have we ever failed God? Have we ever forsaken God? Absolutely. He goes on down, he said in verse 7, he said, and Moses called unto Joshua and said unto him, in the sight of all Israel, be strong and of good courage, for thou must go with these people unto the land which the Lord hath sworn unto their fathers to give them, and thou shalt cause them to inherit it. And the Lord, he it is that doeth go before thee. He will be with thee. He will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed. The word be dismayed means not, it said don't be discouraged. Now I know that we often get discouraged. We often get to the point that, well, what is the point? But the thing about it is, there's a work that needs to be done, and we must be about the Master's work. But there again, we always have some kind of excuse. We have an excuse, Lord, I really just don't know what to say. All right, let's turn over. I want to turn over a couple other places. Jeremiah chapter 1. You know that the Lord prepares us to do his work before time. Here in Jeremiah chapter 1, we find that even Jeremiah, before he was born, he was even prepared then to be a worker of God, to do the work of God and things of that nature. He said in Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 4, then the word of the Lord came unto me. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. So in other words, he said, Jeremiah, he said, before you were even conceived, he said, I had already had a plan for you. He had already had a work for him to do. He said in verse 6, listen to what Jeremiah says. He said, then said, I, our Lord God, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child. How many of us has made that statement to God? Maybe not those words, but I could hear, I could hear people making the statement. The Lord said, go talk to this person. Oh Lord, I just don't want to do that. Oh Lord, I just can't. Lord, that person's not the right color. That don't matter about all of that. Look, there was a time that this world, and I know that this world is still split over all of that, but the thing about it is, there is no excuse. It don't matter what kind of nationality you are. It don't matter what kind of, color you are. It don't matter, what kind of person that this person is. If the Lord puts it on your heart to go talk to them, to go help them, to try to be a blessing to them, get up and go do it. Oh, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Just like he told Israel, he said, look, he said, don't be worried about anything because God's going to be there to help you. The thing about it is, we say, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know what, the words to speak. The thing about it is, he makes a statement to Jeremiah. He said, look, he said, can I put the words in your mouth that you need to speak? Absolutely. He goes on down, he said, in verse 8, or verse 7, he said, but the Lord said unto me, say not, I am a child, for thou shalt go to all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak. He said, be not afraid of their faces, for I am with thee to deliver thee, saith the Lord. Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth, and the Lord said unto me, behold, I have put my words in thy mouth. See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdom to root out and to pull down and to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant. He said, look, Jeremiah, he said, your Lord, David, look, don't worry about what you need to say. Don't worry about any of the words. He said, I'm going to put my words in your mouth. The things that I'm going to tell you, he said, you speak just those things. He said, and everything will be fine. All right, turn over to chapter 18, book of Jeremiah. What did we come from whenever we was made? We come from the dust, didn't we? All right, you go back to the beginning of time, whenever God created the man, he created the woman. He created the man out of the dust of the ground. He blowed into that man the breath of life. So in other words, we are made of dust. We are made of dirt. We can be molded. We can be shaped. And the thing about it is that a lot of the things that we face in our life is to do just that. It's to mold us. It's to make us. Whenever Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego faced the fire, they could have told the Lord, we're going to bow down to this God because we're afraid to die. But the thing about it is, they didn't use that excuse. Their excuse to Nebuchadnezzar is, we ain't got no excuse. We're going to stand up for our God. We're going to face the fire if that's what it's going to take, but we're not going to do what you want us to do. But there again, they could have had all sorts of excuses why to bow down to that God and not serve God. But they didn't do that. All right, Jeremiah 18 and verse 1, and the word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause thee to hear my words. Then I went down to the potter's house, and behold, he wrought a work on the wheels. And the vessel that he made of the clay was marred in the hand of the potter, so he made it again another vessel as seemed good to the potter to make it. Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter? Saith the Lord, behold, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are ye in mine hand, O house of Israel. So don't ever think that, and I know that oftentimes we're like, well, God, I can't be used of you. Don't think that. We made a statement here the other day, I think it was, whenever we had a little devotional, if God can use a donkey to speak to somebody, he can use us. But we use all sorts of excuses, even whenever comes time to go to church. Well, I just don't feel good today. I'm tired. I just don't feel like churching today. The thing about it is, if we would just get on up and go and be at church, I will assure you, whenever you leave, you'll feel a whole lot better. Look, there's been times that, we didn't feel good. We've had health problems, and we'd be like, Lord, I really just don't want to go and preach tonight. But Brother Herman, we went, and after the fact, we felt a whole lot better than what we did. We could have had all those excuses. The thing about it is, I believe it was the last Sunday that we came here. I come all the way down here with a big old knot on one of my tires. Look, it was a wonder I even made it here. Look, I could have used that excuse and many more why not to come, but I didn't. I kept on coming. I didn't drive all that fast, and I prayed to God, if it be in your will for us to make it, then let us make it. But it was, there again, it was only by the help of God that we was able to be here. The thing about it is, we can give God all the excuses in the world, why not to, and why, Lord, why I don't need your help. And the thing is, when a child starts growing up and they get to the point that they start getting independent, what's the first thing that they tell the parents? I can do it. I can do it on my own. I don't need your help. But in all reality, whenever it comes down to it, what do they end up doing? Asking for help. All right, whenever we tell God, I don't need your help, what do we end up doing? We end up on our hands and knees calling back to God and say, God, I need you. Whenever Peter got out of that ship to walk on the water to Christ, and I know that the Lord was all in that, but whenever Peter got his eyes off the Lord, what happened? He started sinking. He looked up to the Lord, save me. Peter, what happened? I started looking at everything around, and that's the thing. If we get to the place that we start looking at everything around us, we're like, and I know that there's been all sorts of things that are happening in our churches today. There's been people come in and people, take other people's lives and all sorts of things like that. Look, we could use those excuses like that. Why not to go to church? One of the most recent excuses is whenever COVID come through and they're like, well, I don't want to be around nobody. I don't want to get sick, but yet they go everywhere else, but they can't come to church. They use these excuses why not to meet with God's people. They use these excuses why not to come and serve God. They say, I can serve God at home just as well as I can at the church. You can't. It's a good thing to have the Facebook and the messages going out across the social media and things of that nature. But the thing about it is, there are people that's not able to physically get out, and they actually have a legitimate excuse why they can't come to church. But for the most cases, even in the day to which we live, I know we've all seen it, our churches has dwindled down, and the only thing that is going on is they have excuses why they can't make it to church. Well, we got ball game, we got football, I'm going fishing this morning. The calendar says that it's going to be good fishing, so I'm going fishing. The thing about it is, look, God can take all that away. Say, well, God can't take that away from me. Just watch Him see. Excuses. God, I can't. You're absolutely right. I can't. But God can. There again, going back to Philippians 4:13, he said, I can do all things through Christ. Not only can I do those things through Christ, but He will strengthen me. Whenever Paul was there begging Christ to take that thorn out of his flesh, not only was he not going to take it out of his flesh, but He was going to strengthen him, didn't He? God is a wonderful, wonderful individual. He will help you in every way He can. I want to look at one other place. I'm going to leave you with this. Let's just turn over in Philippians chapter 4. Philippians chapter 4, and I'm looking, starting verse 10. And there's a lot of verses that can go along with all of this that lets us know that we can't do anything without God. That's not going to be but just a little bit. I think I've mentioned my brother-in-law here before in prayer request. He has a softball-sized mass in his stomach that they're fixing to take out. Thanks be unto God, it's not cancerous. But he's going up to Jackson, and they're going to operate on him with a robot. Say, well, that takes a smart individual to do something like that. Yeah, that individual has to be smart. But it's going to take God too. He said in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 10, he said, "But I rejoice in the Lord greatly that now at the last your care of me hath flourished. Again, wherein you were also careful, but ye lacked opportunity. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned, and whatsoever I have, in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed, both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need." Paul was just letting us know that he said, I've learned how to be content in whatever state that I'm in. How many of us can truly say that? You know, oftentimes we're like, just take for an example. Well, I'm not going to church because, well, brother so-and-so, he can't sing a drop in the bucket, and I don't want to have to listen to him. Well, I know y'all talking about the air conditioner when we come in. Well, they like the air conditioner just to be barely on, and it's hot in there, and I just don't like it. Or well, it's freezing, and I just don't like it. All these excuses. But whenever you stand before God, there's not going to be no excuse. He said in verse 13, he said, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. I can't do anything. There again, I couldn't have even got up this morning. I couldn't have had to, I wouldn't have had the strength to be able to get up to do anything. There's been things that's going on in my life, health problems and things of that nature. And look, in the fleshly side, I'm just like, Lord, just let me die and let me go home. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. But he's like, no, it's not your time to go. There's some things that you still need to do. We all have excuses. What is your excuse? You don't have to tell me. That's between you and God. But what is your excuse today why not to do the work of God? And I don't mean this by no disrespect in any way, but it's probably no doubt a very lame excuse. There is no excuse why not to do the work of God. We have a work that needs to be done. Well, God, I don't... Even Moses made the statement, he said, my speech is not very good. I've been here long enough, y'all can probably already tell my speech is not very good. I've only got about a third, fourth grade education. But if God can use a country bumpkin like me that can't hardly talk English, He can use you. It's not that anything that I've done, don't think that I'm trying to hold myself up. I'm not. It's nothing by what I've done, but it is what God's done. God can help you. He can help me. He can help everybody. But the thing is, we got to be willing. And throw the excuses out the door. We all have a gift. We all have a work to do. And if you haven't figured it out yet, time is getting short. There's no excuse why not be about the Master's work. So let's get to work. Not going out on your own. If you go out on your own, you're not going to achieve anything. But with the help of God, you can achieve anything in this world. Let God help you. If we can have a verse for song. If anybody has anything on your heart or prayer request, feel free to come.